Greetings, this is Sal Munoz with All Chicago. I'm the System Implementation Manager, and I'm here to talk through how diversion projects or diversion facing projects are able to document the expenditures they made for diversion purposes. So in this instance, I have Salvation Army eHark, so the Salvation Army Shield of Hope program that diverts families, and we are going to use them as a jumping off point to show the general community how agencies will be able to document funds they expended for the purposes of diversion. So first things first, before I even go into service transactions or begin the process of documenting the funds I expended for the client, I have to enter the client into my project. So here you could see that this client already has an entry. They are part of a multi-person household. So I have completed the entry for the rest of my household members, and if I am funded by DFSS, I will have also completed the DFSS IDHS supplemental assessment for all household members as well as the diversion assessment. And the diversion assessment only has to be completed for the head of household. So again, the entry and DFSS IDHS supplemental has to be completed for all household members, and the diversion only for the head of household. So that'll be the same way that it works to document the expenditures. The expenditures should only be tied to the head of household. Theo Epstein in this instance is my head of household. So let's go ahead and we'll go into the service transaction section, this tab right here, and we are going to add a service. Now, again, we are only working with the head of household, but we can also select the family members that we are dealing with. So Theo is here with new baby Epstein and Dale Sevium. So we will check those names off. So you'll want to check off the names of any people that you are working with. But for the most part, this has to be attached to the head of household, who is Theo Epstein. Now, the service provider is going to be whatever diversion project you operate. So in this instance, it's eHark. And you'll notice that service type changes. So service types depend on the service provider. If your agency is big and has an emergency shelter, a homeless prevention program, and a rapid rehousing program, each of those are a little different in the types of services they provide. So each of those have different services. Now, in this instance, for for diversion, you can see that we have local bus fare, long distance bus fare, train fare, airfare, etc., as well as rent payment assistance, rental application fee assistance, etc. So that makes sense for diversion because those are typically the types of services provided to keep people out of the homelessness system. Now, I chose my provider. The start date can be backdated, so I can say that I provided my client some of their funds yesterday or however many days ago it actually was. And typically, if you're buying a single ticket, if you're buying a single something, it's only a 1 day transaction, particularly if it's a diversion fund, if it's coming from diversion. So the end date can just be the same day as the start date. And the easy way to do that is just to set it to the current date, which is this button with a green check mark. And now we go ahead and select our service type. So I'll say that I provided my client with rental application fee payment assistance. So when I click that, I can come right down here and go to save and continue. And so I'm going to take a second to show you what just happened because Service Point didn't really tell us what happened. So if we scroll up, we can see that now our service type is selected, our service provider is selected, start date and end date are filled in. You do not have to worry about this, and as much as it seems like it would make sense, service costs, we don't have to touch that at all. What we have to do is actually click this drop down, apply funds for service, and you'll notice now that this funding sources portion came up, and we now have this distribute as voucher section that popped up. Now, there's not much you have to do. The only thing you need to do is actually just fill in this vendor section, click on search next to vendor, and of all these, your your vendor, your quote unquote vendor, is Diversion. All we need to do is show that this is a diversion fund. That's it. So the vendor will be Diversion, and we can click on Add Funding Source right under funding, the funding sources section right down here. So when you click on Add Funding Source, you have access to the Diversion fund. You click on the green plus sign and indicate the amount that the agency has paid. You can ignore the client copay. Typically, clients will not be doing a copay for this. So leave that alone. But for my client, I'll say that I help them by giving them, assisting them with $100 so that they can pay their rental application fee. And after that, you don't have to worry about conditional commitment, support documentation, follow up information. The only other item you need to select is this need status. And notice the need status has a lot of CES, a lot of FHP. You can ignore all of that. Anything that has these prefixes in front of them, like CES, FHP, home path, can be ignored. The only thing you're going to be using is closed and met or closed and unmet. And for the most part, if you're expending resources and expending funds to assist the client in getting a ticket, you've already met their needs of needing a ticket to go somewhere. So for this instance, for this client, I'll select service transactions only, closed and met. And then the outcome of need, we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about anything else. So notice that the only three parts I've actually input into are the service provider, the start date, end date, service type, the vendor, the funding sources, where I indicate that I paid $100 from the diversion fund, and then the need status. So we'll click on save and exit, and there we go. You have officially documented the service to divert the client from homelessness. Thank you very much.